Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, Introduction to Trello. Today is going to be a very practical and hopefully informative session showing you how to use what is definitely my favourite project management tool. So hopefully you are all settled in, you have somewhere comfy to sit for the next hour, and if you have any questions throughout the session, please use either the chat feature, or there is a Q&A feature that I would love to have your questions as we're going along, and I will pause at various points to answer those if necessary. So my name is Anne-Maree. I'm from AMK Training and Consulting and have the pleasure of partnering with Leap to present these webinars. And if you happen to miss any of the webinars, we do actually record all of them, so you get the opportunity to look at those at a later date if you need to. We'd also love your input on what you would like to see other webinars on. We sometimes run a little bit shy of ideas, so if there is any topic or piece of software, anything to do with technology really that you think the community would benefit from seeing a short webinar on, we would love to have your feedback. So I'm going to get stuck in pretty much straight away today. There's lots of different features I'm going to be showing you. And obviously one of the very first things that we need to know is, what is Trello? What exactly are we talking about? So Trello describes itself as thus. It is a collaboration tool that gives you a visual overview of what is being worked on, who is working on it, and how far they've gotten. Well, that's a lovely little explanation from Trello, but really what Trello is for the average user, it is a visual project management tool. It allows you to set up different spaces for the different projects you're working on, and that might be reports that you're writing. It could be things that you're working on with colleagues or other people in the community. It could be a book you're writing. It could be a website you're developing. Each one of these projects gets its own space in Trello, and that space is called a board. We're going to go into the specifics of this very soon. And everything to do with that project is all kept in this one space. Now, just a little bit of history, because I do love a little bit of history. So it's based on what's called the Kanban system, K-A-N-B-A-N, of project and task management. It's a Japanese word, and it roughly translates to card, sign, or billboard is traditionally what we believe this particular word translates to. And it was actually developed by Toyota to streamline their production process. And on the left here, we actually see a card from the Kanban system at Toyota. And what the line workers did was they used the actual card to signal steps throughout their processing and their manufacturing. This allowed every employee to communicate, and it was very standardized. Everyone understood them. And what this led to was a very streamlined process. So what Trello has done, it has taken this process of Kanban and turned it into a digital tool that you can use to collaborate and work either by yourself or with others to really streamline your workflow and make the whole process quite seamless. So Trello's terminology, Trello uses boards, lists, and cards to create a simpler visual system of project management. These three basic elements of the app provide your visual layout, and everything from really high level stuff right down to sort of very specific checklist action taking that we're going to work through. So one of the simplest ways to compare this to what people are doing already is it's like a digital post-it note system. So if you think about, maybe yourself or a colleague who loves post-it notes, and every time they have to do something, they scribble it on a post-it note and stick it on their monitor or up on a wall or up on a notice board. The beautiful thing about post-it notes in real life is that you can pick them up, you can move them around, they can be color-coded, and you can really utilize them to create this fantastic system. One of the biggest problems with post-it notes is that they're in one physical location. So it's very hard to pick your post-it notes up at the end of the day and take them home with you or pop them into your pocket. It's very hard to share post-it notes with other people unless they are actually in your physical location. And a post-it note can only be so big. It's not a very scalable system. Your wall can only be so big. You can only have so many post-it notes on it. The beauty of Trello is that this system is hugely scalable. There is no cutoff here. There's no limit to how many different projects or how many tasks or how many bits of information you actually keep within this system. At no point do you ever get cut off. If I shoot you across, I'm quickly going to jump across into Trello. So this is my Trello account. Now, again, one of the fabulous features of Trello is that it is available wherever you are. So this is actually Trello on my desktop from Trello.com. I also have the app. If I quickly shuffle myself around here, give me 2 seconds. If I jump across to my phone, okay, this is Trello on my phone. I'll go back to the other one. Okay, back to Trello on my desktop. I have it on my iPad as well, because I like that, it gives me a little bit more space. So Trello is wherever you are. So when I first go into Trello, and because I've been using it for quite a while, you can see all these little boxes here. These are all the specific boards that I work with. I'll take you into those in a sec. And I'm logged in up here. So if you've never used Trello before, the very first time you go to Trello.com, you just need to sign in. You'll just need your email address. Trello actually really doesn't ask for a lot of information from you. Really just your name, an email address, and a password to create your account. You do need to verify that at some point, but you can actually jump straight in and start working with Trello. Now, by default, Trello is actually free. So you can actually do, and I'm actually using, just to show you, I am on the free version of Trello today. So the free version doesn't limit you in terms of how many boards you can have. It doesn't limit you in terms of what device you can use the project management tool on. So again, I can use this right across every device that I'm working with. It does limit you on things like attachments. So you can actually upload documents into Trello and keep all of your vital documentation together in one place in regards to a project. I think, and I correct me if I'm wrong, this does change quite regularly, you can upload about a 10 megabyte document into Trello utilizing the free. If you've got really big files, that could be an example of wanting to upgrade to what they call Trello Gold. And Trello Gold is where you can add bigger attachments and you can take advantage of more integrations. So Trello actually talks to about 100 or so other programs out there. Trello talks to Dropbox, Trello talks to Google Drive, it talks to a whole range of different other programs, and there are limitations under the free version for what you can integrate with. It'll only let you do sort of one per board. If you need to increase that, again, that could be an example of upgrading. And to give you an example, upgrading to Trello Gold for an individual would be about $45 US a year. So for some organisations, and you do get a discount of about 30% if you are a not-for-profit organisation. So it's something to think about in the future, and you might want to trial some of those features and see if it's actually worth it for you. So after you've logged in, Trello will actually present you with a blank board to get started. So it'll give you a feel for what it looks like. Now, just to show you what we're talking about, I'll come back to that one. This is a board in Trello. So the name of my board up here is AMK Social. So this is actually a board I use for planning my social media posts. And that's just one example of a project that I have on the go. So that's the board itself. And you can see up here, I've got some information. It's a personal board, it's private. I'm not sharing this with anyone, so hence there's only one little icon active. And then these items here, these are the lists. So the board is the overall project, and the lists are the sections that I would be working on within that project. So the lists I have here, I have a list for themes. So these are specific themes that I might want to post about on social media. And then I actually just have a list for each day of the week. And essentially what I would do is I would choose what themes I'm going to post on, and I would copy the cards, which is our next element, into the specific day that I'm going to work on. And this is a card. So when you're looking at your board, each one of those little boxes is a specific element, and quite often that's a very specific task, it's a very specific feature, it's something that really needs its own focus. So they're your three basic elements in Trello: the overall board, the sections or the lists, and then the individual cards that are completed. And it's actually the card that has all the detail. So when you click on a card, you actually get quite a lot of information that we're going to take you through. And it's things like a description, you can put attachments with graphics or PDFs, documents, all those sorts of things. We can add comments, and there's a whole range of different things that we can do within that card. So just to put you in the right headspace, let's have a think about what some of the projects or some of the ways that you might want to use Trello. Then I'll take you into how the program itself works. So here are some of my boards that I will share with you. So here's the AMK Social one that I was just talking about. So this is all about me planning my social media. Alternatively, I also have one called Processes and Links. Now, this particular one came about from me needing to be a lot more organized than I actually am. You can see I've got, a nice pretty picture on the back of this one. And the idea behind this was to gather all the information about my business and have it all in one place. Now, I'm still in the process of working on this, and it's certainly not complete, but I can be working on it and adding to it as time goes. So the board in this case is called Processes and Links. And these are all of the just bits and pieces about my business. So I've got all links to all my spaces. I have a list called template text, and each one of these cards is actually a situation where I might need to respond to someone. And this is all about, being consistent and having the right words. So when I go into that, I have some information there that I could potentially, copy and paste if I needed it. I can store testimonials in here, my ABN, which I'm constantly looking for, different things that I recommend. I've got my logo, I've got my profile picture. And the idea is this is now all in one space, and I can keep adding as I find myself needing those little bits of information. And because Trello is available on all my devices, I can go to Trello no matter what I've got on me and pull up that really important bit of information that I think I need. Other examples is I also have one in here called my dashboard. And when it loads, and you can see, you can always choose really appropriate pictures here. This is me with someone with their feet up on a dashboard. This is actually all about learning for me. So my dashboard is all of the courses I am currently signed into or working through online, and I do a lot of online learning. So this is one space where I can go, I can click on the card, and then I can click through to the link of where that particular course is, and it's sort of my one-stop shop here for everything I need to get to. And I can move that there. I can click when I've finished a course, and again, it's a really great space. And I find where this is benefiting me is I was finding bookmarks really clunky. I had bookmarks on my laptop, but I don't use a Macintosh phone. I don't have an Apple phone. I've got a Samsung phone. So they weren't necessarily coming across, and I was having to sign in left, right, and center. It was actually really frustrating. So my dashboard in Trello, for me, is a really great space to keep everything all together. And without going into them in detail, running through, I've got, household planning. I've got events that I'm working on, websites and books that I'm building with people. I have, editorial calendars. There's pretty much no limit here to the type of project that you can utilize Trello for, what you actually want to do. But what I thought would be a good activity for us today for me to take you through is just ground up how we would use Trello to sort of build and work on a project. And because of the time of the year that it is, I thought a lot of people are in the process of, or possibly hopefully at the end of getting their annual reports together for the year. And this can, if you think about this as any type of project where you're potentially going to be collaborating with, a few people, this isn't necessarily just about creating an annual report. It could be about working on any sort of project with people. So when we click off in Trello, this little plus sign up here is where we create our board, and we just click on that, click on the create board, and it wants a title. So I will type, and I will apologize straight away for spelling mistakes because I do try and do this very quickly. I'm not going to set up a team, or I'm not going to change the privacy of this one, but you can do. And I'm just going to pick a coloured background. You can pick all sorts of pretty pictures, which you're seeing as we go through. I think this one will be a bit clearer for us. So I'll just click create board. And it actually starts itself off with, the very first list that we're going to work through. So remember I said that our lists are really our sections. So if I'm doing an annual report, one of my lists might be sections needed. I might have another section here for elements that I might need to outsource. Okay, so there's two lists there. I might have a section for proofreading required, and I might have a completed section. So these are the potential, oops, just click on that one. Sorry, I just swiped backwards then. So I've got my outsourcing, and we'll do completed. So I can add a list at any stage. That's not an issue. And you can see that each list is now set up ready to have a new card added. But before I sort of go into any of the detail, what I will look at is just over here, we've got a little menu. Now it can sort of scooch itself across. You'll always have a little link there for show menu. And I can change the background at this point. So I can either choose a color or I can choose some photos. Now, I actually love using the photos. I don't use them when I'm demonstrating because they can get a little bit distracting. But for me, Trello is very much about looking really beautiful, and I need to be inspired when I go in there. So I do like going in and picking a really lovely photo that to me really encompasses what that particular board is all about. We can filter cards, we can create stickers, and I'll show you those in a little bit. And you can actually go in, and there's quite a few little settings there that we will have a work through once we've got some information in here. I'm just going to close that menu for now and get it out of the way. Sorry, my Mac is being way too sensitive. Now, something I will actually point out here, I'm not saving. Trello saves automatically for you, which is really great when you make little mistakes like that. So there's very, very, very little chance of actually losing any information. And if you're someone who is often mislaying things, Trello is great because you can't get yourself into too much trouble. So we've got our list. So then we go into the add a card. So I might want a section for the chair, might need a section in our annual report. The CEO might need a section. Ignore the fact that we just had a typo fix there that wasn't really a typo. We might have finance, and we might have some achievements. And one more, we might have future plans. When it comes to outsourcing, I might have some graphics. And I might have some photos that get outsourced. And I'm going to outsource the printing as well. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to think up all of the different components that are going to come and be required for this project to sort of come into its final fruition. Once I've sort of brainstormed, I'm not going to use these two yet because these two particular lists are where my information is going to get moved to once I'm at that particular point of the project. So if we go into one of these sections, and I'll pick the one that got spell checked for me, you can click on a card and it will open up the back end of the card. And the first thing I will do is I will fix that lovely spelling mistake there. Stop that getting changed. And then I can add a description. So the description can be nice and long, it can be nice and short. This is actually going to show up, or part of it at least, is going to show up on the front end of the card. So when you're looking at the board overall, this is the information that you will see. So for example, you know, I'm not going to do a whole lot of typing here, but it could be short half-page report from the CEO about the year, achievements, and other. I can save that. And sort of over here in the background, you will start to see things sort of starting to appear and starting to change. I could add comments here. Ensure draft is completed, is completed by, and I've actually got the ability here to, you know, pop a due date on there, for example. So I might go 6th the 11th. I'm not going to worry too much about this one. Okay, so tomorrow at noon. So let's make that 6th of November. I can save that. And as you put comments into your card, they actually come down here in chronological order. So as you're working through and adding things to this card, you actually get this history of what is actually happening. So it might be, need a new headshot of CEO. And we're starting to make spelling mistakes here, but we won't worry about that. Okay, we need a new headshot of the CEO. And it might be, you know, we might add the attachment of a business card or something from a photographer that we've used in the past. So these comments can be just little things that you're trying to remember and that you're trying to keep on top of. Other things that you can pop into comments is you can pop in an attachment. So if I go back into this one, and I'll go with edit there. As hard as I try, I can't help myself fix that. And we'll click on attachment. And you can see that you can attach from lots of different spaces. You can attach from your computer, from Trello, from, you know, the big four in terms of cloud storage. Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, and OneDrive are all here. Or you can actually attach a link. So if, for example, I went to local photographer as my Google search, and I am going to quite literally pick on the very first one here. And I want to copy. I want to copy that link. There we go. I can come back into here and I can paste the link to that website there, and I can attach that particular link into there that I can, you know, utilize as we're going through. So I can click on that when I know I want to go and find that particular photographer. Other things that I can do inside a comment is I can attach or mention a member. So I'm just going to use myself here, but I can actually put in the tag of a colleague or someone else I know who's working in Trello. This will actually notify them that I would like them to do something. So I might say, Anne-Maree 74, please book photographer for next week. Anne-Maree, who's using Trello, or me, or someone else who's using Trello, will actually get that notification, and it will show up actually just up here in your notification section. So you can actually tag other members, and that's really great as well. Other things that you can do, good old emoticons and emojis, they're very important. And you can also cross-reference to cards, and that's really important. So on my outsourcing, I actually had a photos one here, and it's just hiding in the background. But if I want to reference any information in there, I can actually add a card or a board, and I can link to photos, which is in this particular board. It's in the annual report one, and I can save that. And it just means that I can keep all my photography detail over here, but I can reference it from here without actually having to rewrite or retype that information. So it very much is trying to minimize the amount of data entry that you have, and cross-referencing is a great way to do that. Another fantastic feature that we can utilize in cards is checklists. So checklists are really your to-dos. So I can pop in a checklist, I can give it a name, and I'm going to be super inventive, tasks to complete for CEO, and I'll click on add. And it just comes up with a little add an item. So I might have here, you know, ring CEO, make appointment for photo. Okay, you can just continue to add these and reuse them over and over again. Now, where checklists really come into their own in Trello, I'll just close this little guy up for now, remembering I don't need to save, is that when I go to finance, odds are I'm going to need to do very similar things that I do for my CEO. Rather than retype them or, you know, have to remember what I did in one list that I didn't do in another, I can go to checklist and I can actually copy my checklist that I created. And this time all I'm going to do is just change my title for finance, click on add, and everything that I had in that first list is going to replicate itself here. So when you've got a quite complex checklist that you're using over and over again, and if you think about how you plan events or how you write reports, there does tend to be quite a level of repetition. This ability to copy a checklist across from one card to another is incredibly helpful. It's a really, really great way of working. I can then edit those if I need to. And click on save. But I've brought the bulk of that across and I don't need to, redo that, which is really, really fantastic. We can also add labels to cards. Now, I'm just going to scoot out of my card for a second, because labels are a way of looking at your board as a whole and thinking about how you would potentially like to break the board up into different sections. So it might be as simple as haven't started, working on, completed. They could be 3 labels that you want to work on. When I'm doing my training, I break my training down into on-site, at my office, or online. What that means is that I can look at a board and I can see, utilizing color, what the breakdown of my information is like. So if I was to create some labels, and I'll bring up my little menu over here on the right-hand side, click on more and go into my label section. Labels start off just being colors, but I can edit each one so that they actually become something. So I might make green not started, and I'll save that. I'll click on yellow, and this could be working on. I'll go to orange. You don't have to use all of these colors, by the way. You can, pick your own up. I will have waiting on information. And then I'll go to blue because I like blue better than red. And I'll say completed. So I can, add some more there. I've got create a new label if I need more than that. I'll close that one up. When I go back into my card and go to my labels, I can choose which particular label is going to suit. So I might go, right, I'm going to put the not started label on this one. I'll close that one up. We'll go on to finance, and the label I might use for this one is waiting on information. We'll close that one up. So you can see I'm getting these little tabs popping up. And what's really great there, and I'll show you there's an even quicker way to do this. When I move my mouse over a card, I actually get a little pop-up here that I can click on, and I can actually pop my labels in using that one as well. Oops. Okay, we'll click on that one. We'll give that one a not started as well. We'll save. Okay, click on them and you can actually see the words, which is really great as well. And that's really nice. So at a glance, I can go, wow, I'm in trouble here because I've got lots of not starteds. I'm waiting on information there. I haven't got a single one that's completed. So visually, again, because Trello is a visual tool, I'm seeing, maybe I should panic. Maybe I should have made that the red label. But what's really great as well is that Trello cards can get incredibly detailed. I'm just going to show you one here that's an example. Okay, you can see here there's lots of stuff going on. Got another one here. Yep, there's another one there with lots of labels, lots of cards. This is actually my training bookings one, and you can see here I've got social media, it's a group training, it's a not-for-profit, or it's Microsoft, it's one-on-one. There's quite a lot of information that I've got here. Bringing up my menu, something that wouldn't have shown up and wouldn't have been quite so exciting earlier is the filter cards feature. And I can actually filter cards using those labels that I've created. So if I want to see just the social media training on my board, I can click on that and it will actually filter down all my cards and just focus in on the ones where I have utilized the social media training. If I just want to see the not-for-profit social media training, I can add my not-for-profit into the mix as well. So utilizing your labels is a really great way, not just to get that visual element, but it's also really great to allow you to then filter that down at another stage as well when you need to just hide a little bit of what is going on. If I go back into my card, the last little thing that you can have is your members. And this is great when you're collaborating on a project with other people. Now, members can be added to a card, but where they can also be added is to the board itself. So if there's 3 of you working on a task together, you can invite them into the board. So you just pop in either their email address or their Trello name if you do know it. And that's really great. Now, what I'll quickly point out there, if you invite someone to Trello who is not a member and they choose to join, you actually get 1 month free of Trello Gold. So a good way to trial what the more advanced features are is to invite a couple of colleagues to join Trello. And for everyone that joins, you do get that free month. And that gives you some time to play around with the more advanced features and see whether or not it is worth signing up for. Once you've added people onto the board, you can then make them a member of a card as well. And that means that they will get notified when changes are made and you're all really collaborating very, very closely on that particular task. Also on a card, you'll notice I've got a little watch icon here. So if anything changes, if someone else does something to that card that I've added, I will get notified. I can archive the card and that will actually just take it out of the space. And again, if you're working on a Trello board for quite a long period of time, eventually you will end up with quite a lot of cards that you don't necessarily want to get rid of, but you probably just want them out of the way. You want them to be, moved aside so that you don't have to deal with them anymore. So you can archive cards that really have passed their use by date, but you've always got them there as a reference and you can always move them back into the board when required. Last but not least, you do have the ability to both copy or move your Trello cards. Now, I very rarely use the move one. The reason being, again, I'll close this little guy up. The easiest way to move is just by dragging. So let's just say that my finance guy came through. I have all of the information I need. So first of all, I'll go into edit labels and I will change it to completed. So I've unticked waiting on information. I've ticked completed. I'll save that. So I can actually take my completed card and I can just drag it across into my completed list. And ideally what's going to happen is the sections needed will get lower and lower and my completed list will get stronger and stronger. Now, if I wanted that checked first, I could have popped it into the proofreading required, and that would be the notification to get someone else to go in there. You might have the colleague who's great at proofreading and always picks up on all the mistakes. You could potentially go in there, write a comment and say, Fiona, it is time to do the proofreading on this one. Please move into completed when you are done. Save that. Now Fiona would get a notification there. and she would be told that it's up to her now to proofread that particular document or proofread that content, move it across into the completed list when she's done. So hopefully you're starting to see this flow, this information going from the left through to the right. Things can move backwards and forwards. And I know people who use this in so many different ways. It's not, it's not necessarily this task-based option. It could be, as I showed you earlier, it could be that process-based option where you just have a whole lot of information showing up in there. We've got, the dashboard option. Okay, if I go back to my boards, go into my social one. So this one here is where we can use the copy. So moving is one thing, and you can see here I've got different dates on these. When I have a system like my social where I have pretty much just my broad ideas in this first list, I don't really want to move them because I want them to remain there at all times. But if this week I think that I want to put a productivity tip out on social media on a Tuesday, what I would actually do is I would click on my little icon here and I would choose the copy command. Where am I going to copy it to? So I copy it to Tuesday. I want it to be first because it's the new thing. I want it on top. I don't want it to get lost down the bottom. And I can even change the title here. And this is where I would put in, for example, the date. So the date would be the 6th of November. Productivity tip, and I can even expand on that. Using Trello to get organized might be my productivity tip. I'll create the card. You can see that it's replicated itself across here. I can now click on it and I can start filling that in with information. It could be a checklist. I might need to make a note to myself about creating a pretty graphic for social media. There's a whole lot of things that I can now start to put into that card, and you can see, the board will grow. It will get filled out as we go along with all of our different information. So I might just pause there. I've been chatting for about 40 minutes now. And does anybody have any questions or queries at that point? You can use either the Q&A feature in Zoom or the chat feature. If you have any questions or would like a little bit more clarification about anything that we've been talking about so far. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So hopefully you guys are all following along really well at the moment, and hopefully this is all, oh, no, here we go. We've got a little chat. How would you suggest managing your done items? Charlene, that's a great question. I think in terms of me, I'm happy to keep my done items just in their own list. I tend to just, move them across there and then I know that they're done. I think if that list started to get a little bit unmanageable, I would just archive them. So I would, if I picked on something here, so if I came across here and said, yep, that's completed, I can actually click on the little edit icon. I can come down to archive. You can see it's actually moved itself off my board now, so it's actually not showing up. If I go into my menu, I've actually got an archived items section and it's still there. So it's really just taking it away from being in my face. But if I ever need to reflect or go back and look at what I have actually completed, that is a really great space to do it. So I'm not actually losing access to that information, but I've gotten it out of the way. It's not, it's not annoying me anymore. And I find that having it there is great because there's nothing worse than getting to the end of the year and having someone say to you, can you please tell me what tasks you've achieved or what you've actually done? And you tend to forget what you've done. So that's really great. Okay, another question is, are the members you invite on a card, can they only see the card, not the whole board? Yeah, you actually can. You can have members just invited to see a card, and that's all they're allowed work on. Otherwise, yeah, if you want them to sort of work on the whole project with you, then you would invite them along to the whole board and they would have access to that. I tend not to work with super sensitive information, so I'm usually quite happy with just inviting people to be on a whole board, and I don't tend to have to worry about too much. Another question is, how did you create multiple labels for your cards? It's pretty much a matter of, when you go into the card itself, when you go to labels, let's move my chat out of the way, you can just tick multiples. So as long as you don't untick one of the other ones, you can have multiple labels. And as I said, they don't really cut you off, and you can give them all sorts of things. I might need a photo for this one. Okay, I'll make that color. Okay, you can see it automatically gets added as soon as I create it. So, sky's the limit when it comes to, creating your labels. I actually have a colleague who, she found this great little tip somewhere, which is she adds in a card and might just call it, we'll just call it break, for example. And what she then does is creates a label. I might make this one purple. And we'll just edit it so it's got a name. Shall I make it a dark one? I'm not sure I can get away with just using space bars, but I'm going to give this a shot. And I'll need a few more words there, but you can essentially create it, and it is a way of separating your lists out. So she actually has things above the break and things below the break, and she works with quite a few different people. So that's their indicator that when they see that particular label or that particular color, that's their way of knowing that, we're separating that list out. Another one I saw recently, and as I said, people are getting very, very, very clever with Trello in terms of how they lay information out, is this one here, digital and traditional marketing, which I'm just pulling up. Nope, that wasn't it. Nope, you weren't it. SEO, that's the one I want. So I actually found this one online today. And another great thing with Trello, let's close you up. Another great thing with Trello is that people create Trello boards. They actually make them available for users. So there's actually an entire repository, most of which are found on the Trello blog itself. So actually within Trello, of people who've created these boards. So I did only find this one today. I'm just going to change the color because, again, those picture backgrounds make it very challenging. Okay, nice little blue there. Oh, did I do that too quickly? Nope, we're stuck with the background there by the looks of it. You can actually see here, this particular board, they've put some really quite fancy labels in across the top of their lists. And you can see that really is very eye-catching. You can see really clearly. And I thought, well, that's clever. How did they do that? Well, when I went into the first card, that's just a graphic. So they've actually created a graphic that's got the word website optimization in, and they've actually attached that particular graphic to the card itself, and that becomes the cover of the card. Now, you can utilize that in lots of different ways. And I have my logo, for example, as the cover of a card, or I have my picture as the cover of a card. And it's adding again to that visual element, which is really nice. So this particular one, SEO implementation for small business, the people who created this one, and believe me, I'm going to delve into this because this looks really great, have broken up their cards into resources and guides, tools, but also some templates and downloads that they've made available. So this is an incredibly in-depth board that someone else has created that they've made available for other people. So if I was to go Trello Boards for Business as my Google search and have a bit of a scan down. Okay, we've got here Trello Inspiration. We've got businesses. You can see the categories down the side here. So we've got business, creative, engineering, event planning, marketing operations. There's a whole range here. If I went into the people management board, now again, remembering I am just using the free version of Trello here. So we've got some information here, some very cute pictures of some people. What I can actually do here is go into my menu, copy the board. I can give it a name. I'll call it Sample HR Board. And I click Create. This is now the Sample HR Board, and this is now mine. This shows up in my Trello board, so it actually shows up in that lovely big long list. And this is now a board that I can edit, and it's now private. So I've turned it in from a public board into a private board. Great question just popped up. Do you have to agree on labels with your team so you're all on the same page? Look, that is actually a really great idea. And I think if you're looking at implementing Trello within your team, sitting down and having a bit of a planning session where you agree on things like terminology, colors, I think that is a great starting point. And, you know, if you really want to reinforce it, you would have a Trello board about using Trello. So you would actually set up an overall scheme of how your organization is going to use it. You'd have a card, and these are the labels we're going to use, and these are the colors we're going to use. Here's everyone's username so that they're all in one place. And that board becomes the management system. It could also be a place where you put great hints and tips. So as you each discover something new about how Trello works, on that board, you could even have a little section there to teach each other about these great little things, because it really is one of those tools that the more you use it and the more in depth you get, you really do discover these great little features. So I've been using Trello now probably for 4 to 5 years, if not longer. And it's only been very recently that I discovered you can format in Trello. I've just been using plain text, but there are actually some, if you jump online and go formatting in Trello, there's these great little keyboard shortcuts you can use for headings and to make things bold and italic. I'd never actually thought about it. It wasn't something that jumped up into my head as something I needed, but the minute I discovered I could do it, I have started doing it. Another great question here, privacy protection is there. Trello does use some pretty high encryption, and I work with a lot of services and business who not only do they use Trello internally, but they also create a Trello board and share it with a specific client. so that the client and the agency or the organization are actually working on the same page, and everyone can see where everyone's at. Questions can get asked, progress can get monitored, and you're not constantly emailing each other backwards and forwards. I think it would definitely be something to really discuss again as an organization, particularly if the client data is very sensitive. But if you think about, you know, the information now that we're emailing around, that we're storing in cloud storage, that potentially someone has on a USB stick that they pop into their pocket and go home with, you know, it's certainly a much higher level of encryption than that. Trello is, if you've heard of the company Atlassian, which is actually an Australian company, they were actually the guys who came up with this and then sold it and made lots and lots and lots of money. So you can actually, on Trello, within Trello itself, they have some very comprehensive information about their privacy, and, you know, obviously there is actually a higher level. I've been talking today about Trello Gold. There is actually an enterprise level of using Trello, and that actually has a section in there called about the setting up and activating what they call two-factor authentication, so that if someone logs in or logs on, then a code has to get sent to a mobile device for that second level of authentication. And it's a nice little buffer there so that, you know, people don't hack into someone else's account. But, you know, there are always risks. We are online, and that would need to be a decision that was made within your organisation. One last little section that I do want to just take you into, and then I'll finish up with some other little questions if we've got time, is in the menu, you have a section called Powerups. And these are the integrations that you can add into your boards. Now, as I said, I am using the free version today. The limitation of the free version is that I can only have one power up per board. But the idea behind these is that, and you can see up here, so the board has reached its power up limit. Okay, so apparently I'm going to disable that one just so it lets me have a quick play. Okay, we'll disable that one. Okay, so I'll go back in. So the power-ups here are potentially little add-ons, or they are actually connections in with existing programs. So I could potentially go, you know, I could add Google Drive as a power-up, and that way I have access to my Google Drive from within this board, and I can have all the attachments and the files, etc., etc. Calendar is a really, really good one if you are using Trello for due dates. So by adding this one in, I can come up and I actually get a calendar icon up there, and anything that has a due date will actually show up. So if I went, I've got some, let's see if they actually come up. Just realised I'm working with someone else's one here, but that's okay. Okay, so because all of their birthdays are on December 10, we've actually got the birthdays showing up there. And it's essentially the due date characteristic that we're using on our calendar. So when you are using all your to-dos, and you've got them all in here, you can actually pull up calendar. It shows you when all of the due dates are for all the different tasks. So it's just a really lovely way to look at it. And you can move things around in here. So if you want to change the due date of something, you can actually just drag it around in calendar view. So it's probably the most basic of the power-ups, but it's probably the one that people are going to use the most. If you use Slack in your organization, there's a power-up there. If you card repeater is actually a really nice one. I've utilized that when I have had a task that just needed to get done every week. So it literally just regenerated a card every time I needed it. I could almost spend an hour in here taking you through, and I've only just started using Butler as well. So Butler is a way of setting up automation in your Trello cards, which is really nice. Another great question, is it proven to reduce emails and improve time management? Used well, absolutely. I think this is great because if you think about that board in your office where, you know, people write notes to each other, it's taking that and putting it in a digital space, which we're all becoming much more comfortable in. And I think the idea of, you know, collaborating online, it does, you know, yes, you need to check your notifications in Trello, but the really nice thing about that is that those notifications tend to be very apt and they tend to be very specific. So you're not hunting through the 50 emails you got that day for the one email that's about the project you're working on. You can go into Trello and just see the notifications that are specifically for the projects you're on, and it's not getting lost in that system. So yeah, I do actually think it is absolutely proven to reduce emails, and I'm a big fan of anything that reduces emails because I think they're one of the biggest time suckers in our workspaces. Okay, another quick question is there a chat board so that discussions between team members can happen? Not really a chat board, but utilising the comments feature and tagging different people is sort of the way that the discussions happen. And if you're using sort of a ticker box system, and I'll just really quickly, just going to pull up a board I am collaborating with someone else, just so you can see what it looks like. Getting a bit out of control here. Lots and lots of boards. Okay, so I have a friend who's writing a recipe book, and we've got some beautiful photos here, and she's using the labels to say, you know, what's completed and what's not. So we've got some really, really great ideas here. But when we go into one of the cards, okay, oops, scrolling, you can actually see who does everything. So the activity log of a particular card actually has who does it. So when you've got different people writing comments, what you'll actually see is Fatari saw something, or Jane did this, or Bob did this, and Bob put this comment, or Bob tagged someone. And you can actually see a really comprehensive list of all the things that, you know, has been completed or spoken to in that particular sense. So yeah, in that sense, you can really see what, you know, what different people are doing and what they've achieved. And you can even see to a certain degree when they're ignoring it as well, because you'll see that there has been no activity on a particular card. Can people delete a board by accident? It's actually really hard to do. It sort of makes you jump through quite a lot of hoops to delete, which is really nice. You know, I've got the board here. There's sort of no delete feature. If I go into my menu, if I come down into more, you know, I can close it. Okay, so you can see there's a close option there. We can archive it. Not really seeing a delete option here, which is really nice. I'm sure you can. I've never deleted a board. I've closed them and it just gets them out of my way for a little bit. But, you know, I can reopen it. You know, there we go. We can click close ones. So yeah, absolutely you can close them, but I think it's going to make you jump through more than one hoop to sort of completely delete it, which is really nice. Okay, I am over time. Really sorry, guys. Hopefully you have had some fun today and learnt about what is I think is one of the best free tools out there. I am umming and ahhing at the moment about jumping to Trello Gold full time. I tend to rely on, you know, what do you call them? You know, referrals and things at the moment just to get my free month every now and then. But I really do love it. Hopefully you do too. Over on AMK Training and Consulting on Facebook, I'll pin it to the top of the page, but there is a little link through to some Trello shortcuts. and this particular webinar recording will be sent through to you when it is available up in the cloud. I'm in the Blue Mountains. It probably takes about 3 days to upload. No, hopefully it's a bit quicker than that. But yeah, if you have any questions, the best place to get me is through Facebook Messenger. AMK Training and Consulting is the best place to go. And as I said, if you have any requests for future webinars, please get in touch. And in a fortnight, and it's actually at 11 a.m, the next one in 2 weeks is a webinar on digital marketing for your organisation. So we will be looking at some tips, tricks, and great ideas that you can implement to help your online marketing. Okay, thank you so much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday, and I will hopefully see some of you in a fortnight. Thank you very much.